Do you feel that Call of Duty just isn't as good as it used to be? You can clearly remember several extremely positive experiences with classic Call of Duty games. Right now, you could even be thinking about Modern Warfare 2 or Blackout. Some people loved CoD Ghosts or even Warzone 1. But for some reason, modern Call of Duty games like Black Ops 6 just don't do it for you. And maybe you think that this franchise is past its prime. After a couple more bad games, you begin to think maybe it's so far past its prime, it can't be saved. And the only reasonable choice for Call of Duty is to hope that the declining player base causes such a disruption in Activision's profits that they have no choice but to fire those responsible and start over again from scratch. The gist of that idea is that the franchise cannot be fixed until it reaches a point of critical failure. And there's a lot of people in the Call of Duty community with this opinion. Not just commentators like me, but also plenty members of the gaming community at large hope for this outcome for Call of Duty. It's a movement so big that it actually has a name when it occurs outside of gaming. It's called accelerationism, and I think it is a perfect topic to mix with Call of Duty because what Call of Duty is going through is actually very similar to what our national political structure is going through with accelerationism. It's a little bit of a microcosm of the big event, or maybe it's one of those as above, so below things. As our society moves toward accelerationism, so does it impact our entertainment experiences as well. So let's go over the basic tenets of accelerationism and see if you are an accelerationist yourself. One of the most important ones is that they basically believe the world operates in 4 cycles of around 100 years to do all 4. They call them turnings, with each turning taking approximately 21 years, give or take. So we have about 80 to 100 years for 4 turnings to occur. Each turning is an epoch or a shift in society as a whole. And I'm going to give examples of this both for gaming and for real life stuff. The first turning is considered a high, which usually occurs after a crisis. During the high, institutions are strong, individualism is weak, and society is generally very confident about where it wants to go collectively. A gaming example of a high point might be the golden era of Warzone 1, when it was the #1 game on the planet not called Fortnite. Fans were happy, quality was high, the future was looking bright, we all agreed about things, Activision was looking strong. A real-world example of this might be the post-World War II economic boom that all of the baby boomers got to enjoy and we did not. That amazing time where we were able to truly build the bedrock of what is still currently the American economy. But this doesn't last forever. After about 20-something years, in comes the second turning, which is called the Awakening. This is an era where institutions are attacked in the name of personal and spiritual autonomy. The conformity of the high is causing a sort of cultural counter-reaction and people are pushing back against it. This would be, in gaming terms, kind of like the IW4 mods and a variety of mods that the community created so that they could replay Black Ops 2 or Modern Warfare 2 or classic games, and that conflicted with the institution of Call of Duty when they fought back and tried to shut it down. The real-world example of this is probably the consciousness revolution, which spanned various college campuses and inner-city revolts ranging from the mid-1960s to the early 1990s. But that's not all. We got 2 more turnings to go. The third turning is considered an unraveling. As it is defined, the mood of this era, they say, is in many ways the opposite of a high. Institutions are weak and distrusted, while individualism is strong and flourishing. In Call of Duty land, that's what's happening right now. Institutions are incredibly weak. Call of Duty is incredibly distrusted. Individualism and people seeking other things is extremely strong right now. The game studios and publishers are just at their weakest positions in years. And it's kind of funny because, as I say, as above, so below, Call of Duty mirrors the real world. The most commonly cited real world example of the third turning, the unraveling, is our current culture war that we're engaging right now every single day in all sorts of places on the internet. And then finally, this is the spicy one, we have the fourth turning. The fourth turning is defined as a crisis. It is an era of destruction, often involving war, revolution, in which institutional life is destroyed and rebuilt in response to whatever perceived threat to the nation's survival. After the crisis, civic authority revives, cultural expression redirects toward community purpose, and people begin to locate themselves in members of larger groups to hopefully create another high point. Accelerationists cite real-world examples of the 1929 stock crash, or all of World War II, especially the extremely destructive nuclear era at the end of it. And I don't think that Call of Duty has hit this point yet. I don't think that I can make an example of a time in Call of Duty where it truly hit this crisis point, but people do believe that it's coming. And if acceleration theory is true, then the Call of Duty brand should be moving toward that crisis point in the near future. So I think that there is a fascinating comparison between our high-level politics in the United States and the people that are funding various philosophies and what's actually happening in our little section of Call of Duty world. And now for the most important part of accelerationism. Its adherents believe that these cycles are completely unavoidable. Therefore, we recognize that if we're in the tail end of the awakening, or maybe fully in the unraveling, that we should actually be working to accelerate towards the crisis. The idea is to make the unpleasant parts of the cycle as short as possible, effectively speedrunning to the good parts. This lines up very closely with community sentiments on Call of Duty, and a lot of people think that we can't get good parts anymore until we destroy what we currently have. Thus, speedrunning failed Call of Duty development cycles to finally get to the good games. So if you're one of the people who think that the only way to save Call of Duty is to first destroy it, then you're probably in some capacity an accelerationist. And you can be an accelerationist if you are actively trying to destroy the game, or, I don't know, society at large, or if you're just hoping that natural societal and market forces do that for you. Most accelerationists don't really care what causes the acceleration toward the crisis. And I'm going to add one more wrinkle of interest to this, which is that accelerationism doesn't just apply to political or social cycles, but also to technological flavors. So much so, there's an entirely different flavor of accelerationist that often identify themselves with the E/ACC text online. I may be over summarizing here, but the technological accelerationists broadly believe that a technological singularity is unavoidable. If you're unfamiliar with the singularity concept, that's a rate of technological advance where we truly hit that flat part of the graph that just goes straight up, change so fast we can't even understand it. It's often described as a super intelligent AI that can answer any question. Faster than light travel, immortality, various future technology indistinguishable from magic that will help us live better and radically different lives. Also things like Neuralink and modifying your brain, that's a part of, accelerationism. Therefore, technological accelerationists believe that we should be speedrunning technology at literally any cost, that there is no environmental, financial, social, or human cost too high to slow down the progress of that singularity, because they very much so believe that it's going to happen, it has to happen, and it'll be a good thing. Let's just get there quicker. A fun quote that I found online is that accelerationists argue that technology, particularly computer technology, and capitalism, particularly the most aggressive global variety, should be massively sped up and intensified, either because this is the best way forward for humanity or because they don't see any other alternatives. Accelerationism used to be literally a fringe political theory, even borderlining on just being a conspiracy theory. It overlaps with collapse theory, which was very popular after 9/11 for those of you that were reading things online. However, despite being fringe and having very few adherents and being relatively new, it has accurately predicted our future over the last couple of decades. We live in a society that is accelerating. Change is accelerating. We are moving away from our institutions. Technology is ramping up toward that singularity with the AI, and a lot of major shifts in society, wars, changes in resources, pandemic even, can all be pointed toward accelerationism if you want to. These predictions of collapse attracted some attention from, we'll say, all of the wrong characters. Instead of becoming a theory, accelerationism, accelerated into a philosophy. And this philosophy attracted followers who largely hope to aid the acceleration of societal collapse. What makes this theory interesting to me is where it crosses over with our current politics and where you can see accelerationism mirroring down into smaller communities like the Call of Duty one, or other gaming communities or services or platforms and technology and groups. It's very, I really believe in the as above, so below on this particular political philosophy, so it's very fascinating to me. There are some very big names that have fully embraced the concept of accelerationism, or at a very minimum have espoused beliefs that strongly align with accelerationism. Not only that, but many of these big names are extremely rich people who now have disproportional influence on our government, and they want to speedrun the collapse in the same way that many people want to speedrun the collapse of Call of Duty. So I'm going to go through some examples really quick. A very easy one right off the rip, Elon Musk. Probably the prime example, both a political and technological accelerationist. He believes that our government is inherently designed to fail and that forcing it to fail is speedrunning the process to success. He's also a believer in the technological singularity. You've got Mark Andreessen. He is the co-author of Mosaic and Netscape. He gets tied into this because he will donate huge amounts of money to almost any cause that promises to deregulate cryptocurrency. As a side note, accelerationists absolutely love cryptocurrency. That's one of their favorite things on the planet. You've got Jeff Bezos. This one's kind of a no-brainer because working for Amazon is kind of like working in a boring cyberpunk dystopia. You've got Sam Altman, who seems to be very heavily on the technological side of the spectrum and believes that artificial intelligence will be running the future and that it's important that him and his company get there first. Some of the spicier ones here at the bottom where we're getting to some of these personal political opinions coming out. We've got Peter Thiel. This is a name you might have heard in left-wing circles, very little in right-wing circles. He became a billionaire by being an early investor in Palantir, PayPal, and Facebook. And he's most famous for his claim, quote, "I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible." He advocated for dark enlightenment, which is something we'll talk about a little bit later, published a number of books and essays that all argue various flavors of accelerationism. In many ways, he's considered one of the foundational people in the accelerationist movement. He's a very interesting guy because he considers himself to be a conservative libertarian Republican that is also openly gay and atheist, so at odds with his own party, but he's also a Republican mega donor that holds wildly disproportional influence over that party. There's a whole rabbit hole I could go down here with the influence of Peter Thiel. Maybe that's best saved for a different video. Another one not as rich as the rest, Curtis Yarvin. He's an extremely popular blogger and a neo-reactionary politician. He's best known for founding the Dark Enlightenment movement, and as a minor summary of that, Yarvin argues that American democracy is a failed experiment, and it should be replaced by an accountable monarchy similar to the governance structure of corporations. Oh, and he's close personal friends with our current Vice President, J.D. Vance, so just yay on that one. And then finally, at the end of this list of famous people, a name that you did not expect to see on this list, especially not somebody with my shameless political bias, Karl Marx. Karl Marx might be the most famous accelerationist on this list, also the most dead. Karl Marx was indeed an accelerationist because in his early works he proposed that capitalism was inevitable, as was its failure. So when it came time to support various political parties, he often supported parties that had policies of free trade, libertarian type policies, pro-business parties, things like that. And he believed that we needed to let the capitalism experiment happen. And not only should we let it happen, we should really support it and just let people go buck wild with it, because it will eventually fail, and then after capitalism fails, then we get to move on to Karl Marx's perfect socialism that's totally going to come next and fix the world, right, guys? But what's frightening to me is that a huge number of accelerationists happen to be influential billionaires or people with values of hundreds of millions of dollars, or politicians, or people that have disproportional influence. They are also not shy about supporting politicians that will bring about accelerationist policies. These individuals, because of their wealth and position of power, all seem to be broadly advocating for a future that's similar to Cyberpunk 2077. The influential accelerationists all seem to prefer a corporate-run society with little to no government. Corporate bylaws would replace our regular laws. Citizenship would most likely be replaced with employment at various companies in their company towns and lands. And instead of equality, equity, freedom, these sort of things, we wipe all that away, and people are judged based on a strict, corporate-focused meritocracy. Your value to the company is your value, and it's not equal or equitable or any of those kind of things. This is very literally cyberpunk. Not only just the genre, but the game, and almost any piece of cyberpunk media you see will have stuff like this in it. and the end result is the sci-fi future version of a coal mining town. As many of you might know, coal miners in the early 1900s in America had to work in coal mining towns. And the company that owned the mine would also own the town, and they would own the houses in the town and the stores in the town. And you didn't get paid in cash, you got paid in scrip, which is like monopoly money that were like coupons that the company would provide you. And these people lived like slaves under the companies, in many cases not even free to travel or to leave, or permanently indebted. That is exactly the future that a lot of accelerationists want, but just add some technology and cyberpunky stuff in there. So when you see things like AI running the government, or freedom cities, or corporate governance cities, or we should replace various governments or things, we should let corporations run the court system and things like that, that's an accelerationist belief that pushes us closer to Cyberpunk 2077. As you can tell, I do not believe in this philosophy or this movement. I think that the overall philosophy part of it might have more truth than the movement, though. I do believe that society moves in waves or cycles. I'm not sure if they're exactly the four turnings that the accelerationists want to talk about, but they do tend to result in booms and busts, much like our economy and some of our social changes. The part where I greatly diverge from accelerationists is where people seek to speed run the bad parts by making them so much worse. I don't agree with any of the anti-democratic or anti-egalitarian beliefs, any of the pro-corporate beliefs. I'm definitely the kind of person who would prefer to try to fix something instead of just destroy it. I'm one of those nerds that would prefer a flawed institution that needs many years of repairs over just burning it to the ground and seeing what happens. But that's just me. That's my personal morals. That's my belief. You might not agree. You might diverge from me. Your personal morals might be that these people had their time, they had their chance, they had their opportunity to build the thing, it didn't pan out, and I'm not going to entertain that anymore. We're going to wipe the slate clean, and we're going to build something from the ground up. I don't know what it's going to be, but it can't be worse than what we have now. A lot of people believe that, and that doesn't make you a bad person if you believe that, because your personal morals are just different than other people's. Unfortunately, I do believe a lot of people with those morals are now in charge of very powerful institutions and really want to bring about some accelerationist beliefs. I'm not looking forward to the results of this experiment. Really not, but I'll probably live to see some of them. Guys, that is all for this video. Thank you for all of you that stuck with me to the very end. I was able to talk about politics in a gaming, Call of Duty-centric way and just kind of pull you out of Black Ops 6 into a new thought that perhaps you didn't have before. As always, I hope you learned something useful. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.